very small, I had a very large garden and was brought up in that, rather in isolation from other children. So up until the age of 5, I just had this huge garden with wood and stream and lake and all sorts of things. We then moved to the industrial north and to school in Sheffield. I moved then to the south coast when I was age 10, so finally I got the landscape back. I started as a painter, and then when I went to art school, I found that in fact painting landscape wasn't really the thing to do. It was very much a time in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, when American abstract colour field painting was happening. I did that for a while, but then they made the mistake of introducing me to photography. So I took a photography course, and then what do you do with a camera? Well, you get out of the classroom, you go out and find something to take pictures of. So I was back in the landscape, taking photos and then making sequences of photos, and then it soon became film. Well, I think there are two important things. One is that it's an intensely personal thing, as I think I've noted that I am very involved with the landscape. It's not just something I point a camera at, which I try to communicate, in a very sort of physical way in the project. But then there's also a sort of, I hope, a sort of very rigorous approach to how I film them. Rigorous in the sense that I like to have nature, things like tide and wind and waves and those things, have a say in how the film is made, how it's shaped. I mean, clearly I take the camera, I go out there, I have a tripod, maybe sometimes, maybe not, or I build something, but I always allow for something that's in the landscape that's happening in front of the camera to have a say in the shape of the overall shape of the film. As in, for example, 7 Days and Park Film, and actually most films. Well, I don't think they do. However, having said that, Rachel Carson's Silent Spring came out in, I think, 1962. I was pretty aware of that writing, and people like Gregory Bates and various sort of systems group people who were writing about that time, about the environment. But I think for me, it's a much more philosophical sort of quest, more to do, perhaps a little closer to the philosophy of science, and in the more general way about how scientists as well as artists, because we do very similar things, we all sort of look at nature and try and make sense of it in some sort of way. And it's kind of rather big and complicated, and we have our different ways of doing it. So I'm more interested in that. It's not a primary interest of mine to express my own identity. However, I hope that something of my love of nature and my involvement with it, and the things like leaves and trees and waves and streams and things are things I can't do without. They're very, very important and fundamental. I couldn't imagine life without them. So I hope that does communicate. Recently I've had access to more digital technology and found somebody that I can work with, Brady Marks, who's a very wonderful programmer and composer, and we've done a couple of collaborative projects where we're in fact exploring the sort of work I was doing in the early days of using weather input, weather data, wind speed and wind direction in particular, to control the camera and to shape the work. But now, instead of it being a sort of take the camera out and take a record of what happens with the wind powering the camera, for example, as an anemometer, now I can do the whole thing in real time. So the wind speed and direction comes into the gallery and edits pre-recorded footage and mixes the sound in real time. So it's what I'm calling a generative work, in that it's never the same twice.